Hey everybody, welcome to our show, Sharing Our Pairings, where we get drunk and you try to listen. I'm John, the cigar surgeon, joining you on our first show with Logan, the village pairing idiot.
I am the village pairing idiot surgeon. You want to know why? Is
Well,
because you
I
couldn't
do
have
want to
picked
know
a
why.
worst co-host for the show because I'm not really much of a drinker because I have a problem and I black out and sometimes act like Frank the Tank. So I'm here more just to ask questions and prod the audience along. That's all I'm here for.
So when we do pairings, it sounds like we're gonna have to take it pretty light. Give you some sparkling juice,
Hey man,
or
my wife's pregnant, so like I'm all about the sparkling grape juice right now. Shit's
all right,
tasty.
man. Yeah, I guess if you've got a pregnant wife, that pretty much makes you dry for the entire period, doesn't it? Unless you want an angry wife.
Yeah, more or less.
Let's kick it off with some questions because I think there's some questions here that sort of lead into
So
what
it's our
we
first
would talk
show,
about anyways.
right?
This is our first show.
And there's a really good
Oh,
question from Harley, and I want to ask that one first. So go ahead and
Harley
ask that.
Holmes, he's here all the time. He makes almost every single show. If we had a prize, we'd probably put him at the top of the list.
But we don't because there's no pairings on. There's no prize on this show.
There's no prize. No one wants to give us booze for free.
No, exactly. Are you asking the question, or you want me to ask it?
You go for it, brother.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. You're so nice, man. Canadians are such nice people. Well, anyways,
It's only your
uh,
drinking.
Harley asked, how did we pair up for the show? So I've since John's been a mod on Cigar Federation for coming up on a year now. Actually,
Wow.
I've been prodding him, trying to get him to start a show, and we've bounced around a lot of concepts. And obviously on Cigar Federation we have a lot of different shows. We've got Cigar Chat, we have Half Ash, we have Stogie Geeks, we have One Embargo. So I didn't want to start a show in that kind of genre because we've already got that covered. But one thing we don't is pairings. So Surgeon was actually down from the Great White North, aka Canada, a couple of weeks ago. We both went to Cats and we were setting out back on my deck at our pool. We were smoking Goldie Laguito number fives, which were very tasty.
Yeah, man, it
And
was hot. It was 95 freedom units for all of our U.S. watchers.
I know, man. I mean, for you it was boiling, but for me, I mean, it was nothing. Well, I made the mistake of asking John. I said, "Hey, man, I got a really stupid question to ask you. What's the difference between Scotch and a whiskey?" And literally about 45 minutes later, I was like, "Okay, I'm done, bro. That's enough." And I realized that Surgeon knows a lot about cigars, but he also probably knows more about alcohol, pairings, food. So maybe, Surgeon, tell him a little bit about your background and how you're so qualified
Sure,
to
man.
be on the show.
And I don't like to think of myself, and I certainly wouldn't present myself as a Scotch or whiskey expert. I think that every time I go to a tasting, I learn new things, and I like drinking. I don't drink for the alcohol, surprisingly. I know it's funny to drink alcohol and get hammered, but I smoke cigars because I like the taste. I drink alcohol, whiskey, Scotch, port, because I like the taste. The alcohol thing is great, but quite honestly, I just enjoy the flavor. And I actually come from, it's kind of an odd story. I was kind of a 7-year-old, 6-year-old punk kid, and I was hassling my mom, who's working a full-time job like a lot of mothers out there. And she comes home, and I'm just bitching and bitching and bitching about, I don't even remember what it was. I think it was there was no baking in the house, and she's, you can imagine coming home after 9 hours. This little snot nosed kid is basically demanding baking from you. And she said, you know what? Here's a friggin' baking book. You want baking? Fill your boots. Thinking, hey, this is gonna shut this kid up. She comes back the next day. Kitchen's covered in flour. There's stuff all over the countertops, and there's like a pile of brownies in the countertop. And she
Okay.
says, "Well, what's this all like?" First of all, the kitchen is a disaster, but she's more sort of agog at the fact that there's a plate of brownies here, and she's like, "Well, like, what happened here? Did your grandma help you?" And I said, "No." She says, "Well, I mean, I get that you can follow instructions, but who taught you how to use the oven?" And I looked at her and I said, "Well, Mom, I'm not stupid." And she said, "Whoa, excuse me." And like a smart mom, from that point on, she put me to work in the kitchen. And I've literally been cooking uh, for myself, and I did some semi-professional cooking, working as a cook for quite a number of years. So, I was kids are not afraid to put dirt in their mouth. I was not afraid to
Giggity.
mess. Yeah, man. You try something. And the thing I think about pairing, and probably something we should get up front, is that first of all, there's lots of things that suck together, and I think anybody who has ever had orange juice and brushed their teeth, or vice versa, knows that is a funky combination, and you're gonna have 10 combinations that are terrible before you have one combination that's good. And being a guy who can combine flavors for cooking, that comes from 34 years of experience. That doesn't come from a guy walking into a kitchen and on his first day he's whipping up miracles. I mean, you burn stuff, you wreck stuff, it tastes like crap, you make the girlfriend angry. That's just how it works. But I guess back to Harley's question, which is why we get paired together. I think you have a pretty awesome palate when it comes to cigars. I like to pair a lot of stuff together, whether it's beer and food or whether it's whiskey and cigars. And I actually make a conscious effort all the time when I'm reviewing to drink it with water, because when you pair something together, you're looking to modify or enhance the flavors that are already in there. And there's a real inherent danger of if you're drinking anything other than straight up bland water, you're not necessarily going to get the sort of true flavors out of that cigar.
Valid point. And why am I here? I smoke a lot of cigars, and I'm basically half Indian and half British, so I drink a lot of non-alcoholic beverages like tea. I can tell you anything you want to know about tea. And
yeah,
that's
man,
about it. That's about it.
Talk a little bit about tea, because when I came down there and I was like, being the demanding Canadian I get up at 7 in the morning and I'm like, where's the coffee, man? Where's the coffee?
And I gave you some Indian coffee, which probably tastes like crap, but it's got like so much caffeine in it, it's ridiculous. But that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I mean, I drink a lot of teas. I spend a lot of time in India, so you got to make sure your beverages are hot so you don't get sick as a dog. And so I drink a lot of black teas. I mean, anything from India, Assam's, Darjeeling's, from Sri Lanka, Ceylon tea, or anything from Kenya or Russia. So what I like about tea is that it's something that I think adds flavor to. It's something, obviously, it's more than water. I mean, it has a flavor. But I think Victor Vitale said it best. It is kind of got like an astringent type property to it, where you can get notes of the tea out, but it's not like pairing a cigar with orange juice, so it's not going to screw it up, and it does have a very nice effect of cleaning your palate. So when I do review cigars, I mostly drink black tea, but we can definitely get more into that later. But yeah, I mean, that's how we got hooked up. So I mean, the goal in this show is, and if you don't know, it's going to be every 2 weeks on Wednesdays, what we're shooting for now, but is to kind of give a range of palates. We're going to have special guests on. We're going to do a lot of cool stuff, but is to kind of appeal to everyone. If you like craft beer, scotch, pairing with foods, if you're like me and you don't drink all that much, with other non-alcoholic beverages. So it's going to kind of show the whole gamut. So it'll be an interesting show, and I'm always here to provide entertainment, I guess. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things we talked about when I was down in Austin is I don't think there's a single cigar chat that's gone by where we haven't had somebody on, and without even asking half the time, they're automatically talking about what their favorite beverage is to pair with whatever cigar that they've got that they're blending. I mean, it seems like it comes naturally to everybody, and this is straight out of the guys that are coming up with these fantastic cigar blends.
Exactly. So with that, Surgeon, we are up against it for our first break. So I know you have something very special planned, apparently, so why don't you go ahead and get at it?
Yeah, man, we got to thank the sponsors out there, and although we don't really have sponsors today, we're sponsored by Hakushu Whiskey. For great times, make it Suntory times.
How long did you work on that?
I might have done some mirror reads in the bathroom.
Might have done some mirror reads in my breaks at work today, just to practice up for. So what were you holding up? Just out of curiosity, so everyone knows.
Yeah, man. So this is a Hakushu. This is a Japanese whiskey. I actually got this when I was down in San Francisco because for whatever reason, Japanese whiskey is really hard to get up here in Alberta, home of some of the heaviest drinkers in the world. But because obviously Japan is a long ways away from Alberta, nobody wants to spend the money to import this in. So I brought this back because I can get my hands on a lot of Scotch and whiskey, but sort of back to the core of the show pairing, I'm always looking for something new. I want to challenge my palate. I know that I've tried some Yamazaki, which is another great Japanese whiskey, drink it on a fairly regular basis. And I have to give props to the Japanese distilleries because um, blending a whiskey or brewing distilling whiskey, pardon me, it's not easy, and consistently the Japanese whiskeys place in like the top two when they do whiskey competitions against other whiskeys from other distilleries all around the world, and they take this sort of passion and they turn this into a craft that they take very very seriously. And I would say in many ways they probably take it as seriously as the Scotch take Scotch distilling.
So, being the village idiot, I gotta ask. So, making whiskey is not as easy as you see on moonshiners of just putting corn in a barrel and boiling up the mash and letting it go.
Yeah, the I've been to a distillery, and distilling is one of those things where you could have the science of distilling down. Um, you could have your pot still set up. You could have the right temperature. You could have all the science down correctly to what you think is right, and still put out a lousy product. I mean, these guys are tasting this product throughout its entire lifespan. Um, they know through experience what kind of wood to mature it in, which we'll talk about in a later show for sure when we get into Scotch tasting. But um, these guys are literally taking this whiskey and they're tasting it 100 times or 200 times throughout its lifespan to make sure that it's evolving and somehow over that 12-year span or 15 or 17 or however long it's being aged, they're getting this particular spirit exactly where they want it. And what's more shocking to me is they're doing it consistently. I mean, they're doing this 1,000 bottles, and they're doing it for another 1,000 bottles, and next year they'll do it, and it'll taste exactly the same if that's what they're going for.
Interesting. This is why you're on the show and I'm not, because I haven't. I'm just like, hey, let's go make a friggin' pot still. Let's run some shine, no big deal.
You know
So,
what, man? There's a guy actually. Somebody's telling me a story of a guy, and I can't remember where it was, but he's got was it a bourbon distillery? And no, it was a whiskey distillery. It's a whiskey distillery that he started in. And I kid you not, he started it in a shack because he was just bored and wanted to take on a new thing. And this guy started a whiskey sort of. He started distilling in his backyard, essentially, is what it amounted to. And you can't drink this stuff right away. I mean, you can't drink it after 1 year. I mean, it's going to take 3 to 5 years before this stuff is even drinkable. And this guy made whiskey and then turned out to make this into a business and ended up owning a multi-million-dollar facility. So, um, yeah, man, you can turn something like this into a business, not just a crazy hobby that your girlfriend gets mad at you for spending money on.
yeah, like water into wine, right?
That's right.
Yeah, brought up a little religious comment. All right, moving on. So, John, I know we've got a couple of questions from the audience, which I am not equipped to answer. So, if you want to tackle a couple of those before our next break, and just so everyone knows, this is kind of our pilot show, and if you think it's stupid, it's only going to get better. And we're going to be just 30 minutes tonight because, Surgeon, where do you got to go? Let's ask. You've got somewhere very special to go.
Yeah, that's right, man. So because I don't like money, and you know this, I hate money. I just absolutely hate money. There's a aged Scotch tasting that's going on at a local liquor store here called the Willow Park Wines and Spirits. I frequent there often. They laugh every time I come in because I'm always there for tastings. The guy there, Dave Michelle's, who's a genius. He is like the guru of Scotch. I could listen to that guy talk for days. He is hosting a tasting of Scotch bottles that are minimum. I think he said it was 30 years, but these are $1,500 bottles and up. So he's going to be pouring tonight a Lagavulin, I believe it's a 46 or 47. It's $5,300 a bottle, and he's going to be doing a half-ounce pour, and that's just one of the bottles that he's pouring tonight. So, needless to say, the tickets cost me a few bucks. Don't tell anybody how much I paid, and that's not something I want to be late to, because for something like that, these bottles are something you may only taste once in your life. You may never ever taste this again. I am certainly not going to go and shell $5,300 out for a 46-year-old bottle of scotch.
No, I wouldn't do that. But anyways, that's cool, man. So take copious amounts of notes so we can discuss it on the next show and talk about some of the great scotches you've had or great alcohols that you had there.
Absolutely,
So,
man.
questions from the audience. Surgeon,
Yeah,
take your favorites.
yeah, man. We got well, actually, Harley just came up with a good follow-up question in the chat, which we'll talk about in a second. But Fast Jimmy has a great question, which I think sets the tone of this show, because we don't want to be a couple of pretentious know-it-alls. I like alcohol. I like to drink. But, going back to sort of our core statement, which is there's going to be a lot of experimentation. There is stuff that I know that works. There's lots of stuff that I have no idea whether it's going to work, and I'm going to try it, because that's exactly how you develop a pairing palette. So Fast Jimmy wants to know, just how hammered are you willing to get in an hour on a Wednesday evening? And I don't know if Fast Jimmy knows that I'm Canadian, which means hammered is usually my default setting. But he says he personally needs subtitles to understand the second half and the censor button, which we're gonna swear in this fucking show. So I hope everyone's ready for it.
Yeah, we can fucking swear, but unfortunately, you know what the problem is?
What's that, brother?
You actually got your family watching. I haven't
Yeah,
got my dad to watch a fucking cigar chat in 2.5 years.
It's
Daddy wasn't there.
It's possible that my lovely mother, who raised me and put up with my crap for 39 years, is potentially going to be watching the show, so I might have to make some apologies and go over there with
John's
a bottle
mom.
of wine. So Beth Jimmy wants to know, how hammered are we going to get? And honestly, man, we probably aren't going to get hammered, but we're going to drink, at least I'm going to drink. I'm going to drink possibly a lot. I might have 2-3 scotches. I might have a couple beers. You know what? I'm willing to make that kind of sacrifice for our audience, and I don't think our audience recognizes how much of a sacrifice I'm willing to take by jumping on the hand grenade of getting drunk live on the internet, because I care about our audience, our SigFed guys out there.
It's fucking science, man. Fucking science.
So, what did Harley ask here? Harley had a really good question. He was asking about shipping, and we kind of talked a little bit about this before the show, because we were talking to a guy in Ontario here who maybe he's going to be on the show. He was talking a little bit about brewing and shipping beer. Now, I know you guys in the States, you can ship alcohol across the border, or can you not ship alcohol across the border? Is it one of those wink wink nudge nudge things?
It might be. I mean, I've shipped stuff. I mean, obviously it's kind of a pain in the ass, because not from a duties or taxation standpoint, but just being able to actually package it up and send it to someone without it breaking, right? But I've done it within the U.S. all the time. As for shipping it across the border, I mean, I do know a Canadian, so we could always try it. But I don't know.
The interesting thing is that, and I think there might be some of this in the States, because I know that there's certain provisions where you can't buy from certain states because there's tax laws that the government's got to get their piece of the pie. We have something similar in Alberta, or in Canada, I should say. The reason that there's a lot of I don't want to say alcoholics, fans of alcohol in Alberta. And the reason we're such fans of alcohol is because booze is super cheap here, whether it's liquor, beer, or wine. Our tax rates are essentially non-existent, whereas the other provinces across Canada, the taxes are quite high. So there's rules that you can't, even if it's person to person, they get on you if you're shipping booze across province lines. So unfortunately for our friend in Ontario, he could ship you a beer down in lovely Texas, but he could not ship a beer to me in Alberta, which is just a couple provinces away.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll have to
But
figure out the answer to that.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of questions on here about pairing lists, and I like where people's heads are at. Um, we're gonna work offline to come up with some really interesting pairing combinations as we get further into the shows. We're gonna talk a little bit about, what our pairing of the week is. Logan's probably gonna do a lot of non-alcoholic pairings because I know that there's a lot of guys that don't necessarily want to drink while they smoke, and that's responsible. Um, Shocker McGavin, he was asking whether you're going to pair with non-alcoholic drinks, and I know you guys are crazy on the sweet tea there, aren't you?
In Texas we are, but I mean, I normally, and if I'm trying to review something or I'm trying to actually taste a cigar and provide notes on it, I don't drink sweet tea because it's got a pile of sugar in it, right? I mean, it'd be like
Yeah.
drinking like a Diet Pepsi or a Coke or something. It'll screw it all up. But I'm going to drop a little bit of knowledge, my limited pairing knowledge.
Drop a knowledge
I'm
bomb.
going to drop the knowledge and we'll go to a quick 10-second break. But a little bit of knowledge is that the reason you should potentially drink something sugary like a sweet tea is that if you're a Nancy and you can't smoke double arrows for breakfast like me, is that the sweet tea and sugar is something really good to drink, that'll help kind of kick some of the nicotine and also kick some of the sickness you might get if you don't smoke stronger cigars or full strength cigars on a regular basis. So good thing to test out if it's the first time you're smoking and I mean a cigar or whatever, or you're not sure if it's going to kick your ass or not. Sweet tea is a good thing to have by your side.
Well, let's take it away with the sponsor break, Logan. What's the second spot sponsored by?
Yeah, the second spot is going to be sponsored by none other than the Cigar Federation store powered by Delaware Cigars. If you guys haven't noticed recently in the store, we've added factory direct boutiques. So what does that mean? It's not a bunch of mumbo jumbo. The idea behind it was how do we create, or how do we create a cigar that is boutique in nature, made by a manufacturer that is quote unquote boutique, but offering it and stripping out all the unnecessary packaging costs, band, all of that to be able to provide a cigar that's a great cigar, but at a cheaper price. So in there, you'll be able to see the Project 7 by Noel Rojas. If you don't know Noel, he's Guaycon Cigars. Check it out. You can read all about it. It's a 5-pack for basically $25, and then a 15-count Mazo for only $60. So we're talking $5 a stick or $4 a stick, depending on what you get. It's a great value. We
That's a
just
hell of a
launched,
deal.
hell of a deal. Launched it yesterday. Sold an absolute shizer ton of them. Check it out. Store.cigarfederation.com.
So getting back to the questions, we got a good one here from Mickey Irate Base, and he wants to know, first of all, how do you know it's going to pair, and 80% of the time he's saying he can guess if it's a strong or mild smoke, but with spirits it's really tough to know whether it's peat or not. To answer that question sort of indirectly, part of that comes from experience. I'm going to tastings all the time, so I have a little bit of a knowledge because I've drank a lot of whiskey, a lot of scotch, and I own a lot of whiskey and scotch. I find for me, just like reviewing cigars, I take notes. If I don't take notes when I'm drinking, and this would actually be a big recommendation for me for anyone out there going to a tasting for beer or wine or whatever, take notes, because I don't know if it's the booze clouding my memory over time, but I can't remember anything about a particular bottle the moment I leave a place after a tasting. So I write notes, I can go back and I can say, oh yeah, this is the caramel, smoky toffee, whatever. This is going to pair really well with an Alec Bradley Sungrown. Um, Now that said, I don't know everything. I'm just a guy who enjoys booze with a cigar. There's going to be lots of times where I'm going to pair something and it's going to be nasty, and I'm going to finish that because, again, I'm willing to make that sacrifice for our bedhead audience. I'll take, I'm going to say it here live on the intertubes. I'm willing to pair a Ron Mexico with a spirit of our audience's choice. So I'm just throwing that out there. Maybe get some people coming up with some ideas for the next show. Ron Mexico with a spirit of your choice, preferably a spirit I have. But
I have a good idea.
yeah, brother.
Why don't we, on one of the shows coming up, because I know you have that fancy friggin' scotch or whiskey flavor wheel.
You got it.
Maybe we should make one just about that.
Sure, man. We can talk about that
Okay.
because I think and that sort of dials back to Mickey's question, which is how do you know? And as a sort of a general rule of thumb, pairing, whether it's food with spices, whether it's food with alcohol, it's all about complementing. And by that I mean you're looking to enhance the flavors of the primary thing. So in this case, we're really talking about enhancing the flavors of a cigar. I mean, you can enhance the flavors of scotch or whiskey or bourbon or whatever as well, but really our focus here is how can we pair something with a cigar, maybe take that cigar to the next level, or maybe get some notes out of that cigar that we wouldn't otherwise get. And what you're looking for is something that's not going to overpower the cigar. If you're having an alcohol that's really strong, it's got a lot of punch to it, and you're having a really light cigar, it's going to blow your cigar away. You're not going to taste anything. And vice versa, to your point about tea, you're having a double Lajero in the morning. If you have a really light beverage with it, like Kool-Aid or water, or whatever, that double Lajero bomb is just going to blow your beverage out of the water. You're not going to be able to taste anything. It's all you're doing is putting liquid in your mouth.
Ah, okay. Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's a good point. So, I saw a question in the chat from a few people. Do you typically, when you're pairing? I mean, there's some people that smoke, like myself, several cigars a day, and when I do that, I'll typically try to start with something, lighter on a fresh palate, like a Connecticut or something more medium strength, medium body, and then as the day goes on, work myself up to something, and so I'm not kind of killing my palate early in the day. I mean, would the same thing apply to pairing cigars, or is pairing something that's done in the evening with a fuller body, fully strength stick?
No, I enjoy pairing in the morning as much as I enjoy pairing in the evening. Obviously, I can't really do that if I'm going to work, but on a day I have off, like a weekend day, there's nothing better for me than a nice fresh brew coffee with a cigar that complements. And one of the things I have to do when I'm doing whiskey or Scotch tasting is you do have to cleanse your palate between sampling, because you are going to have flavors that might transfer from one drink to another. Tea is actually really good at cleansing your palate. There's some green teas. There's some well, I don't need to tell you about teas. You can tell me about teas. But I use coffee. I use chocolate. I use cheeses sometimes. Really good at resetting your palate, bringing you back to ground zero. It's not going to be 100%, but it's going to reset you so that you're starting with a fresh pairing combination.
Okay. So we're getting up to it tonight. It's only 30 minutes because Surgeon's got to go to this fancy fucking, you know, $90 million ticket tasting pairing thing that he's doing.
You got it,
So
man.
just so everyone knows, yeah, this will be a show that we're gonna do, assuming, a zombie apocalypse or anything like that, every Wednesday, or not every Wednesday, every other Wednesday. So the next show would be June 25th.
June
And
25th.
you can always go just to Cigar Federation at the top, click events, and then look at sharing our pairings, and it'll give you the workup of the shows. We'll usually have the shows lined out at least 2 months in advance, or at least several episodes in advance, so you can pick. And we're going to try to do this in a way where we kind of logically go through order of things. But obviously, anytime, any questions that you have, you can always post those on the Cigar Federation page, so on and so forth. So, John, I know we're butting up against it, but you can finish it off because ultimately it's your show.
Oh, I appreciate that, man. The next show, I'd love to see you guys post questions again. We really appreciate that. Next show, we're gonna kind of, like Logan said, we're building up to pairing, so we're gonna go through some background stuff. So next show, we're gonna talk a little bit about glassware. I know Logan is pretty passionate about beer glassware. I'm pretty passionate about whiskey and Scotch glassware. So we're gonna talk a little bit about glassware. We're gonna talk a little bit about what is Scotch and whiskey. And next time, I'm not gonna be a huge lame-faced guy not smoking cigars. I'm going to have a cigar. I'm going to have something I'm pairing it with, and we're going to talk a little bit about that on the next show. So tune in June 25th. That's a Wednesday. Like Logan said, we're going to do every other Wednesday, so appreciate everyone tuning in.
Yeah. What's going to be our fancy sign-off?
I don't know what our fancy sign off is. Go out there and don't be afraid to try what's new.
Hey, I like it. I'll
All
take it.
right.
I'll take it. All right, everyone. See you guys
Thanks,
in
Pinheads.
two
Appreciate you
weeks.
tuning in.
All right,
See you in
guys.
two
Have a
weeks.
great night. Bye
Have a
bye.
good night.